Welcome to the Imbalance Podcast, a place where we navigate the struggles and perks of single mom life, the ebbs and flows of my work in the beauty industry, quality relationships, working through personal traumas, and finding our higher purpose. Sounds like a lot of struggling? Well, it is. So grab a drink and let's try and balance it together, because who said we have to navigate through this chaos alone? Welcome to the Imbalance Podcast, your weekly dose of mom brain, unfinished tasks, work fatigue, and simply trying to balance the imbalancable with me, Kat, your host. Whew. So, to begin, these little kids need to go back to school. Because why in the hell are they getting 5-day weekends? I have nothing else to say about it other than this is getting out of hand. Whoever I need to speak to, because listen, talk about driving you bananas. I'm glad I got that out the way. So now I want everyone to collectively, let's all take a very deep breath in and out. So it's been about a week that I'm recording this. I hope that we've had time to process our emotions, take a break from social media, because oh my God, and just had some time to listen. Like, it's okay to dissociate in order for you to be able to process things better. That is completely okay. And also to take the time to kind of like sympathize with each other. Now, I'll preface this by saying that I am biased because I did not vote for Trump and I wouldn't vote for Trump. I don't agree with his values and his rhetoric, but I have realized, after kind of gaining some clarity, that we can't necessarily group people just based off of that one thing, because what may be a deal breaker for me may not be a deal breaker for the next person. Does that make them a bad person? No. Because I believe that your actions and how you treat people, that probably beats over what party you voted for. But this week for me, like, regardless of the fact that, he won, and I felt like that's very upsetting for a lot of us because we feel as though our personal rights are attacked. But I also realized, like, man, life does keep going on. That doesn't mean that it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that you give up with whatever cause that you're trying to bring to light, or whatever fight that you're trying to fight, or whatever the case may be. It's just more of an acceptance that, okay, we have to understand each other in order to coexist. There was a more diverse group of people who voted for Trump this time than the first time around. And that's the part that a lot of us can't wrap our minds around. But I'm going to get into it a little bit deeper. I am. First of all, the holidays are coming up. So some of the people that you may not agree with may be sitting at the dinner table with you. And I think it's important that we have enough information about what it is that we're talking about before we start having these talks or debates or arguments, And my bias is that having a candidate that does racist or misogynistic, xenophobic things is a deal breaker for me. I don't care what he's saying he's doing for the economy, or even if there's truth behind, this or that. That, to me, being the forefront of your campaign, I can't get with it. But for some, it's not, like I said. And I hope that any of you are listening, whether you did vote for Trump or you didn't, I want you to consider utilizing these tools to, if you have people that you know or you care about who, you know, can't understand why you voted for him. I think it's important for everyone to kind of follow these steps so that love does prevail. And that's the most important part about all of this, is that a lot of us who are afraid of what his rhetoric stands for and the hate that's going to be behind it, not even so much from him, but from his followers or his following, we're afraid of that hate that's going to come out. The hate that may have been a little bit more discreet. So I think that the people who did vote for him and who are surprised by us feeling afraid, I think they need to empathize with that too, if they're truly a person who didn't vote for him for his antics, but they voted for him based off of his policies. So again, we need to kind of give each other like the space to process all of that, because it's not a game. Like, I know a lot of people think it is, and because of the foundations of the US, you know, being built around kind of individualism, wealth, white supremacy, you know, misogyny, that is scary because it feels like we are going to go backward. Let's also not be ignorant to the fact that because of that being the United States Foundation, a lot of us understand that, like, we're not going to wake up one day and there was going to be a black woman for president and then all of the things were just going to go our way and we were going to succeed. There is still so much work to be done within the systems. We already knew that. Most of us knew that. But a lot of people saw Kamala as being a huge step forward. So they're grieving. They're grieving that we don't get that. I also want to say that if you're black or brown, trans, gay, straight, bi, whatever, you know, you're safe here. And I think it's important to know that, because right now, some people may have thought they were safe with certain people and they may feel unsure now. And I think that's valid, you know, because of what is at the forefront of Trump's campaign. It's valid for some people to feel afraid. But after I kind of, you know, got the anger out, I just started having more and more talks with, like, me and my sister just kept going back and forth about, like, how and what, and then we kept finding out more and more people who voted for him, and we're just like, what is really going on? I just felt like I want to know more and more. I want to understand more, because I just feel like the more we can understand, it's like the less biased that we can be. And I think that is important, because again, we live in a world full of so many different types of people. And not only the different types of people, but we also are always changing our views on things. If you go and look back at old, maybe Facebook posts or whatever, if you are a person who's like, has like a imprint on the internet, and you may not believe some of the things you wrote, you know, 10 years ago. So it's kind of like, we give ourselves that grace, but we don't give some other people that grace. And I think that's important too. I think we should always look at people from a standpoint that they may have the possibility of changing their mind with more information. I was so disappointed in how a lot of people handled their anger and emotions on the internet. Some people started crashing out, like, in real life. And, you know, like I said, giving people grace for feeling however they felt in that moment. But, you know, going straight for the internet to post certain things might have been a mistake for a lot of people. A lot of you should have just logged off and stayed off for a couple of days so you got it together. The people, you know, threatening to report ICE, the people who were threatening to go back to Starbucks and drink coffee in protest to the protest for Palestine. Not only is that outrageous, it's outrageous to say out loud and post and brag that you're going to do that. It's also so senseless. Like, were you even an ally to begin with? What was your true reasoning behind, you know, if you were boycotting, what was your true reasoning behind it? Because if it was for, you know, the movement of Palestinian liberation, and you so easily lost sight of that, then don't know how trustworthy you are. But it makes us just realize how easily our views can change on something. And I also do believe that the pro-Palestinian movement, the recent one, a lot of like cancel culture and bullying was used to get people to care. And I think that's where a lot of us went wrong. In order for someone to care, they would simply just have to care. So I think we have to allow people to do it on their own. So let's get to the nitty gritty for real. Thanksgiving and Christmas are around the corner. So I'll preface this by saying, if you simply do not feel safe in certain spaces because of the climate of the elections, then I don't recommend you doing this right now. And second, if you guys simply never talk about any of this stuff with family members or friends, then that's okay too. Like, this is not like, oh, you have to have these conversations with people who voted differently from you. This is to help you navigate it if you feel like this is what you want to do. And I'll also say, if you want to have a debate, you have to have good points, but they have to have good points as well. We can't be arguing with people who are only going based off of how they feel and blatant ignorance. So do not put all of your energy into people that are like that. The first thing that I recommend is looking up Trump's policies, because the first thing that a lot of them are going to say is that they like his policies, probably, or they have been a Republican their entire life because of the Republican ideologies align with their values, and Trump being the candidate for them was not a deal breaker. So make sure you look up his policies and the things that he says he wants to do, but also the things that can realistically be done under his presidency. Keep in mind, you're not going to get through all this in one day, and you're not going to even become an expert in one day. It takes time. So I suggest making a note section for this specifically and writing down all of your sources in which you found this, just in case you got to go back and look at context. And also, I highly suggest using ChatGPT to understand and break down some of the concepts. Also, something kind of fun that you can do is there's this test that it shows you like where you fall in line with as far as like a political scale. The website is called politicalcompass.org. So it's like 4 squares, and there's a left and a right, and then there's an authoritarian and a libertarian. And I fall in the upper left of the middle of the libertarian side. And my friend helped me break down what that meant. But on the website, I think it has like some stuff for you to read, for you to understand what that means. Second, I highly suggest looking at material of why he won. Now that damn statistics chart, throw that shit away. That is not a reliable source as far as something to blame or something to have as your reasoning. It's a sample of the population. So it's not that like there was no way for them to know every person who came in the vote what their ethnicity was. That doesn't account for everybody. It doesn't. Also, how do you define Latino? How do you define whoever did that, how are they defining race? Because everybody defines race differently. Then the third thing I want you to do is open yourself to the idea that the Democratic Party may have failed us. Trump put the economy, like every single speech, besides his rhetoric, he also always talked about the economy. Us trying to recover from COVID, the inflation, all of these things has affected everyone in America. And he knew that that is what we wanted to tackle. According to what I've listened to with Kamala, it's like we focused a lot on women's rights, we focused a lot on trans rights, which all of these things are important, But apparently the majority of people want to know exactly how the economy is going to be affected. And that may have been where the Democratic Party went wrong. If she were to be the first Black female president, I think representation is very important for our motivation, for our inspiration, like for higher purposes. But it's not everything. And we have to stop thinking that she embodies the entire Black community, an entire Black community and what we think and what we feel, because we're not a monolith. And I'm speaking directly toward the Democratic Party when I say that. They had one job, and that was to gain the majority of the Electoral College votes. Some argue that the Democratic Party campaigned way too liberally. Again, the foundation of what America is. We had to read the room and know that those views, they're not going to care about those views, knowing that that's the foundation of this country, the other side, the Republicans. So if we campaign too liberally, that's important to know. As we heard Donald Trump say, which is outrageous, he said that there are schools giving children without the consent of parents gender affirming surgeries in schools. Now, where the hell are they doing that at? Because they're not. And that, again, that propaganda and fear mongering, and because we have that stuff at the forefront of our campaign, they chose to run with that. And that is important to note. This is just something that I feel like I'm going to touch on. You don't have to necessarily bring this up in conversation, but this is good to understand this, just to have a point of view. If you're not privy to this already, but research why people would want to vote for third party. Research why people voted for third party. If you are not hip to what is maybe going on in Palestine, or what may be going on in the terms of like socialist groups and what they believe America has come to and what needs to happen for it to truly shift, I challenge you to look up why people voted for third parties. Because again, trying to open our minds into thinking that not everyone would have gone about it the same way. We may have the same goal, but we may have different strategies as to how we get there. Because again, there's a lot of people that are trying to blame third parties for the lack of Kamala winning. And there's already been numbers saying that if you add all of the third party votes up, put them towards Kamala, that she still wouldn't have won. So that doesn't even have any base of facts behind it, so there's no reason to even think about that. Number 4, I suggest learning about how inflation works. Now again, I can't sit here and explain it to you because I'm still trying to figure that out. But knowing how it works and the effects of it and what controls it is important. And any idea or concept that is listed under Republican or Democrat policies, look up how or who controls it. And for any policies or ideas that you are afraid that will take place under Trump based off of what he's said, look up when that will take effect. And it's likely that you may not find when it will take effect. But again, trying to lessen the fear surrounding certain ideas, because he doesn't just become president one day and then everything changes. This isn't to diminish the feeling either that they have said hateful things towards groups of people. But again, lessening the fear so that we can prepare ourselves for if there is going to be a change. And lastly, I think this is number 5, I suggest, like I just touched on, looking up which states are red or blue according to their House and Senate. And I want you to also look up if there's any trends in those states. Like, okay, this state is blue, and is the crime rate high or low? Is the cost of living high or low? Is the rates of homelessness high or low? And I only say that because I don't know if there's a correlation behind that, but I know that some Trump supporters are trying to utilize that if there is a correlation. And so, again, just being ahead of the game, if they do try to come at you saying, well, this and this and this and this, you have, the information to have those conversations. Oh, y'all, that was a lot. But, remember, ignorance and the uneducated are rampant on everywhere. But I'm hopeful that this election woke a lot of people up. A lot of people that may have been asleep. Although this pill is very hard to swallow, give your loved ones grace, for any reactionary things that they've done, if it is outside of their character, but also challenge them. We can't be afraid to challenge people, especially the people that we love, because that's what love is. It shouldn't be conditional. And give yourself some grace and patience as you're learning, and everyone else is learning too. Most of us are not experts, and that's what makes this shit really hard. And also make goals of things that you can do to better your understanding. Maybe go sit in a city council meeting, or listen in, or read one article a week that you feel is safe to read. There's also a website called All Sides, and that is a website where you can go and you can see whatever publication that you're looking at, where they tend to lead, whether it's like left-leaning, right-leaning, neutral, and how far left or right. And that is a really, really good tool. There's so many other things on that website too that you can look at that are helpful tools to help you kind of sift through bias. So I hope you all find one thing that you can partake in and do well in, and stay conscious. And thank you guys for listening.
Let's stay connected. You can find me on Instagram at imbalancedwithkat, or on my website imbalancedpod.com. Give me a follow or a podcast review, and I'd love to share it on air. Thanks again for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show.